I am actually, yeah. Not it's very awesome. I like it here a lot. I grew up in a town called St. Augustine, Florida, and that is the oldest city in the U.S. Actually, my family was brought over to the U.S. as slaves in the 1600s and escaped and ran up the coast and founded St. Augustine, Florida. So we're the one of the oldest families in the U.S. from Europe. I'm mostly Spanish, and then I have some Seminole Indian in me as well, and a couple other things. But yeah, so I grew up there, and I actually grew up in a trailer park of all places, and I spent a good 18 years of my life in that trailer park. And I think in the very beginning of being a kid, it was awesome. It was, I mean, we had complete freedom. There was a creek. We went swimming. We went fishing. There were go-karts. There was a orange grove. I mean, it was heaven. And then as I got a little bit older, and went to school, I realized that other kids didn't live in trailer parks, and it was kind of weird to a lot of kids that I lived in a trailer park. And so I wasn't really, accepted very well by other people whenever I was just starting to go to school. And so I sort of felt like an outcast. Not only that, but I have a really interesting personality type that allows me to see patterns really well, but it forces me to not be so good at some other things. Like, something that might be super obvious to some people won't be so obvious to me, and things that are really obvious to me, other people have no idea exist in the first place. So when I started tackling the idea of approaching and attracting women, I came from a place of not understanding it at all, not even in the slightest bit. And what happened is a lot of guys, because I just couldn't, I don't know, I don't take in information where I just look around me and see the answers and take it in. I have to see patterns over time to be able to tell whether or not something is valid or not. And so my entire life is based around me seeing these patterns and then creating formulas based on these patterns that work. And it's a really strange way to live your life, I realize now, because it's been the way I've always done it, so I've never really thought twice about it. But most people don't do that, and they have they're a lot more surface. Everything's really obvious on the surface for them. So I'm able to look into it. Well, first off, it costs me some things. Like, it costs me the ability to feel like I can fit in immediately in a lot of situations. But it gave me the power to be able to almost predict things. I can see patterns, and then once that pattern has happened enough times, I can predict what's going to happen next. And so that allows me to look at women and I've gotten like, oh, you can see into my soul a lot from women, and I have that ability, and I'm able to teach guys to do that. But again, that's not, wasn't always like this. I was really, really bad with women, really bad with women. And I didn't even kiss a girl till I got in high school. I think a lot of guys probably didn't kiss girls till they got in a little later in school, and I wasn't really, I didn't date anybody at all until I was probably around 17 or so. And it was just really, really interesting, or maybe 16, but really interesting for me to go through this pain period where I didn't know what I was doing. And then one day, eventually, I just snapped. It's kind of a long story, but I could make an abridged version if you wouldn't mind, Vince. I don't know if you really want to hear the whole thing or not, but yeah. So I'll give you the quicker version. About 9 years ago, I was living in Tallahassee, Florida. I moved there because I just didn't want to live in the trailer park anymore. And most of the guys who grew up in the trailer park still live there, actually, so I had to really escape to get out. And I moved to Tallahassee, and I was working at a gas station there and doing kung fu full time. That's all I was doing. And this girl walks into the gas station, and it was just like, she's perfect. I'd never seen a woman like this before in my entire life. She was young, maybe a year or two younger than me at the time, and just, I don't know, it's something about her. It's not that she was hot. She was hot, but that wasn't it. That's not what really caught my eye. It was something else about her that was just different than everyone else that I had met. And so immediately I just felt like I got hit by a truck. It was like this amazing feeling. Well, getting hit by a truck is probably bad, but I felt like I got hit by a truck that was full of awesome stuff. And so I essentially, long story short, it turned out we had mutual friends, and I ended up seeing her again. and we really liked each other, but I could feel myself kind of screwing everything up. And every day that I saw her, I knew it was getting worse and worse and worse. And we never actually dated, never kissed or nothing. But I realized I was just gonna ruin it if I continued. And I thought never may meet another woman like this again in my life. So I was like, well, instead of forcing it and trying to make it work and screwing it all up, I need to go study, because I wasn't the man I needed to be in order to help her sort of take her life to the next level. So I definitely did not know what to do, that's for sure. I also thought that I would been such the nice guy for such a long time that stepping outside of that seemed really foreign, not just to me, but all my friends expected me to be that way too. So if I stepped outside of it, everyone thought it was weird, you know? So I sort of defined myself in a little box, and I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't like pursue her. I couldn't show her that I was sexually attracted to her, or that I was interested in her. The group was really cliquey, and I didn't know how to get in there. Like I didn't know how to enter the group and become part of it or take it over or anything like that. So so I didn't know what to do. So I just froze. And you know, I at the same time, I sort of had this interesting realization that besides that I suck with women, that's one very interesting realization that I had. The second one was that I started to study Zen, and Zen was really interesting. It wasn't like anything else I'd ever studied before. And I eventually began to see things that I couldn't see before I studied. So I was able to see the process of society, like that it was an engine, that there was a mechanics to it. And if you know how it works, you can get in and you can soup your engine up, so to speak, and make it run faster, make it more powerful, make it work in your favor. And so that was kind of a big realization for me, but I didn't know how to do it yet. So what I did is I left. I actually didn't know what I was doing. I just split, and I left town, and I went on this journey. I started hiking the Appalachian Trail. I hiked about 300 miles, and I got off and rode a bus up to Virginia, and then rode a bus up to New York, and then over to Michigan, and then I did some sailing in Michigan, and and then I did some pheasant hunting in Kansas, like random shit, totally random stuff. And for me, it was really about fitting in environments that are completely opposite. I started out from there. That's all I started out with. So I went through this process of trying to improve myself, and eventually, just to jump this one part, I got into a relationship with a girl who was really attractive. She was another one that was kind of the ones that got away from high school. She was really hot and kind of bitchy, and treated me like complete dog shit. And I was a little bitch around her. Just did whatever she said, like just the worst thing you could ever think of, Yeah. Well, I feel his pain because I know that's like it sucks. It sucks because when I was in that situation, I didn't have any friends that could like grab me by the collar and slap me across the face and wake me up, So I sort of went down this vortex of pussiness. And then one day something happened and I snapped, and that's really what I wanted to, that would really probably shed some light. She never told her dad that we were dating. We were living together in North Carolina, and she never told her dad that we were dating. So one day he decides to make a surprise trip up to visit her and calls her like an hour before he comes into town. So I was working 2 jobs to pay for the apartment, and I get home from like a 14-hour day, and she's freaking out, and she's like, "Oh, you got to get all your stuff. You got to just leave for a few days so he doesn't know that you're here." And I was a little bitch, so I was like, "Okay, sure, yeah." And I just was tired as shit, but I was like, "Whatever, let's just do this," So I pack all my stuff up in my little Honda Accord, my black Honda Accord, and I